Earth Science time. Miss Norris is here with Norris Teaches Science, another Earth Science Edition video. Still talking about lithosphere processes, and today I present to you erosion processes. So by the end of the video, you should be able to say, I can describe how erosion happens and the results of different types of erosions. So what is erosion? Erosion is the removal and the transport of weathered material from one location to another. First, you have to weather the material, and that's what the last video I did talked about. It talked about weathering. Now we take those weathered bits of the rock and we move it from one place to another, and that's called erosion. So weathering is the breaking down of the rocks, while erosion is the moving of the particles. Now, some agents of erosion are running water, wind, glaciers, ocean currents, waves, and even organisms can help with erosion. So, what happens to the material? So, after it's eroded, the material reaches its final stage of erosion, which is deposition. This is where the material is dropped off at a new location. It could be a few feet, it could be miles, but it's taken where it stops is its deposition. So, how does water erode soil? Usually, we use rain or use some gravity. Rain uses gravity as a force. And what it does, it hits it, it loosens the soil, and then it transports it down a slope. You can kind of see that happening here. So the process of water erosion. First off, you get sheet erosion. This is where thin surface of water moves soil particles. And then you start to have rills, which are tiny streams that form. So it's compacting into a certain area. Then you get your gullies, which are like trenches where the soil is moving. Each move of the soil is a small distance, but it gets to the point of moving in a certain area. I sometimes see that out in my parking lot when it rains really hard. After the rain, there's some sand on the pavement, and that's the soil being eroded onto the hard surface through runoff. What is a glacier? A glacier is a large moving mass of ice that forms near Earth's poles or in mountainous regions at high elevations. You can kind of see some pictures of glaciers over on the left side. Glaciers are moving though, they're not just stagnant. They move based off freezing and melting. Now, how do glaciers erode the soil? What happens is they start to scrape or gouge out large sections of the landmass as it grows and as it retreats. And what it does, it carries these huge rocks and piles of debris over a great distance and then deposits them. You can kind of see right here, it's gouging out, it's scraping out some of these parts of the soil, and it deposits them when it starts to move backwards. So glaciers do create a couple landforms. I'm going to try the best to say these. I am not really good at saying some of these terms, but you have glaciated valleys. These are U-shaped. If you look over here, you can kind of see some glaciated valleys. They're kind of U-shaped. Um, you have the circuits. These are bowl-shaped depressions at the head of a glaciated valley. Um, Here's a circuit right here. You got Ataris, which are like snaking ridges. You can see them right here. And then horns are pyramid peaks. And all these are formed by glaciers that have receded from an area and they have eroded the land. Now, wind is another way that we erode soil. What happens here is um, the wind blows over and it picks up particles. This is really strong in an area that does not have a lot of vegetation because vegetation likes to keep the soil together with its roots. So the wind picks up and carries the sediments, and the particles actually batter other structures and cause more damage, like a sandstorm or something like that. Now, there are some things that are shaped by the winds, like sand dunes. You can see that up here. This is mound or ridge of sand. Wind does cause them to move. In my state, I live in North Carolina right now. So on the Outer Banks, there's some place called Jockey's Ridge, and it's a big giant sand dune. That's just the name of it. Um, and it's moving. If you go to the visitor center there, they talk about how it's moving. They even have parts where you can see where lightning has struck down on it, and their big story is that there's a car buried somewhere underneath the sand dunes um, that is causing the lightning strikes. But this giant things of sand. And you have louses, which are basically sand dunes, but they're with silt instead, which is a type of soil. How can humans control erosion? Well, you could plant a row of trees called windbreakers, especially if you are in farming. If you plant the windbreakers, it keeps your soil intact so you don't lose that very fertile soil for growing. You can do tracing of hillsides so that things don't get run down the whole hill. You can plow along the contours of a hill so at different elevations you do plowing, rotating crops, and of course planting vegetation on slopes so that it keeps the soil intact so it doesn't run off and run away during the erosion process. But this is about erosion, which goes along with weathering. We're going to continue talking about more stuff with the lithosphere. But I hope you learned something today. And this is Mr. Norris, and he is signing out of this video.